David Lloyd is like you say, we've got 134 clubs. We're over Europe. So actually we are in 6 different languages when we have to translate all of our training, which is always interesting. But they are exactly what you've described. They are like a lifetime, and at the end of the day, they have everything under one roof. We are a lifestyle brand. We are not just a gym. We're not just but we heavily, look at family. So for us, it is a family proposition, as well as we've got the hybrid workers and we've got all the business apps. We are predominantly family.
Hi, I'm Lauren Parsons.
And I'm Andy Jackson, and this is the All Well Co podcast.
Dive deep with us as leading experts share their unique perspectives on topics such as recovery, sleep, movement, and the latest innovations in the space. Welcome to the All Well Co podcast, Michelle. Before we dive into your journey, let's just set the stage. Can you share how we all first met and what drew you to the All Well Co community?
Well, funny enough, I obviously met Andy a long time ago. We're going probably back into the 1990s, and our paths crossed very, in the UK fitness sector, to be honest. I spent quite a bit of time as a consultant working for FitPro, but obviously what drew me to the All Well Co was basically your sense of community. As you probably know, my background is in group exercise. And that is very community driven. You're very purpose led, you're very genuine, and some real great authenticity around it. So for me, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say this or yet, but I'm a very big fan of the Vivo Barefoot, which from a partnership perspective, and Brave and Ancient. So for me, it's your community part and just your ethos and your purpose. It's just really attractive. So hence why I really promote, or it's really from a positive perspective to really sort of promote you guys.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And before we move on, you did mention Andy, and you've known each other for a while. Is there gossip you could share about his time in the UK? I mean, any little
probably could, but let me keep it professional, should we say? I don't know whether someone's already said this, Andy, but before Andy was a superstar in, his FitPro, CEO days and bringing the world together of, commercials versus, a GroupX, he was a very exciting instructor at a club called Colette's in Thames Ditton. And believe it or not, he was the star of bringing, I don't know if you know space hoppers, the things that you sit on.
Hibbity hops. They call them hibbity hops here.
Literally, he was the king of the hoppies. And, you'd have kids so exciting, hopping around. But again, although we laugh, and it was in his lycra, obviously in those days, what you sort of look at is how purposeful that was at the time, because what he was doing and what you were creating was getting kids to enjoy activity, moving in a really fun environment. And so that was just brilliant. And then obviously he went on to wear his lycra more into the aerobics world and the presenter world until he married that with, from a more of a commercial perspective, and led GroupX, really, if we're being honest, in the UK from a FitPro and Les Mills perspective. So yeah.
Yeah. Michelle, Andy and I worked at a software company together years ago, and one of our developers, would you believe, found one of his videos that we all watched together on the hippity hop ball. So I've actually seen it. It was really good.
Oh, I love it.
That was the big old VHS videos. Yeah, I think we saw 12 of those.
Yeah.
Captain Hoppy.
Captain Hoppy.
But it was just, I think that was the brilliant thing. It was all about getting kids, that many years ago, active, just in a fun way. And we're still trying to do that now.
Yeah. That's awesome. So you've been in the industry for a long time. How did your journey into fitness begin, and what's kept you so passionate over the years?
Funny enough, I didn't start off in fitness. I dabbled in a little bit of finance, a little bit of media. And actually I joined a female-only gym in Bristol back in, I want to say, in the early 1990s. And I actually did a group fitness class at the time. And I thought, you know what? I reckon I could do this and I could get paid for it. Amazing. So I suppose I had a little bit of money, went and did my sort of, group exercise qualification, and then sort of, the rest was history. And in those days, and I am going back to, my first job, let's say, as a group exercise instructor was in 1992, was in Holmes Place in London, which there was only a couple of clubs, to be honest, in the city at that time. And Holmes Place had over like 10,000 members. So, you were teaching a lot of members on a day-to-day basis. So, for me, it was just the community element, the tribe element it brought to it, the fact that you could have fun, the fact that you were, gaining strength, or at that time it was very aesthetically led rather than purposely not that it wasn't scientifically led, but it was all around aesthetics rather than how we make people feel, which is much more where we are today.
Yeah.
And Holmes Place, just for you, Lauren, is kind of like Equinox.
Yes. Oh, okay.
They're really high end,
nice.
very premium looking clubs, but did have a real focus around GroupX.
Okay.
So Michelle, it's wonderful to get you on here and to have this conversation. But obviously, you and I have been around group fitness for a long time.
Yes.
What do you see are the biggest shifts in group fitness? From when you started to today. What's different about group fitness?
It's an interesting question. For me, we've seen trends come and go. We've seen trends come back. We take reformer that was sort of 25 years ago, and it's now back and probably one of the hottest things out there. I think choreography was very hot back in those days, and that's all we knew, to be honest. And we went from being non-choreographed to 100% choreographed, if that makes sense. I think the shift is back to being, again, non-choreographed and more from a fitness. Because if you think about the studios that we have today, and I look at our products, looking at Blaze or Battlebox, it's around getting more people into these environments that feel comfortable. So if you looked at the early days, apart from group cycling, it was very heavily, the majority of people that were going were always female. And so, the whole, if you look at it now, where you've got your Barry's boot camps and you've got your wearables or you've got your F45s, if you look at the change of the demographics that we've done, we've made that change from that sort of, Jane Fonda days into a much more, I'm going to say, experience-led instructor hosting rather than necessarily taking the class. And so for me, there's much more purpose-driven programming. Not that it wasn't then, but it's really quite specific to how do we want you to feel? What sort of are your goals? If you're looking at that 360 holistic view, which I look at the moment, is, what products are going to give me my cardiovascular health? What is going to give me my strength health as I'm either younger or as I get older? And obviously now we know, especially since post-COVID, we've got so much on the whole mental well-being, stress resilience, everyone's hybrid working, you sort of try and then get that mental health well-being. So, and again, it's not that we didn't have yoga many years ago. It just wasn't marketed in the way that it's marketed now. Does that make sense? Yeah. The same as, we had group cycling many years ago, and someone, I think I probably on a LinkedIn post sent sort of a little message back because someone was saying, cycling's dying. And I'm going, it actually isn't. Not where we are. We've seen a slight dip, but actually most people still want to get some form of cardiovascular fitness.
Hey, Michelle, the second most viewed TV show in sports after the World Cup is the Tour de France.
Tour de France, exactly, yeah. And so I think that's where, people are having these misconceptions around what's in and what's out. And I think if you look at it, I always look at it in every way, is look, it's all activity. It's just how it's been marketed, wrapped up, experienced, and we've moved on with the times because some of those trends are just still there. We've just cleverly given more experiences as we've got sort of, into the 2025s. Or even from the 2020s.
Let's stay on this track for a minute. I'm just going to frame something. So you're with David Lloyd Lloyd Group. We'll come back and talk about David Lloyd in a second. Just for those who are listening in the US, David Lloyd is just like Lifetime Fitness. It's like Midtown. It's got tennis. It's country club. It's got fitness. It's got pools, etc. It's very high end, very premium. Let's come back to your journey on that in a second. Lauren and I were reading this week about what's happening here in the US. A lot of these standalone cycle clubs, a lot of these standalone fitness type clubs now are starting to close here. They're not surviving. A lot of people seem to be going. There's two questions I've got here. Is that happening in the UK? So are some of them starting to struggle now? They all started these standalone clubs, except for Pilates. So these Pilates still seems to be doing quite well. And now you're seeing lots of these recovery centers that are doing ice plunging, sauna, etc., also starting to struggle. They are not necessarily making it. And we had somebody recently on the podcast who said, well, part of it is lifestyle. If you're going to your physical therapist, you've got your membership, you've got your kids to take to sports, etc. How have you got time to pay another membership and go and just sit in a cold pool and sit in a sauna and a recovery center? Is this what you're seeing in the UK? And then I'm really interested in your views around it.
I wouldn't say we're necessary. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think the difficulty we've had is post-COVID, everything seemed to die a little bit, if that makes sense. Because we had, and we still have the Barry's boot camps. We still have the Year 1 Rebels. But what I would say is there wasn't much opening after that, if that makes sense. And I think it will depend on where they're based. So if you think about sort of London has a city where they'll have passes. And I'll give you a good example. My son has a wellness hub membership. So for him, he can dip in and out of these different modalities, let's call them, and he's paying one membership. So that's fine. No problem. And that's because his work are part paying for it. If you're then going to go to different ones, it's going to be very expensive. Does that make sense? And actually, we're trying to get more people to do different modalities. Think about that 360 holistic view again. You don't just want to do cardio. You just don't want to do weight, and you want to have some mental well-being. And so I wouldn't say we're seeing them close. What I'm saying is you don't have a problem getting a place anymore, is what I would say. So I think that is the difference. And I think what we've also seen is some brands are also, working with each other. And, you'll have mergers, etc., which you do in the States. Yeah. So I think, where they're trying to go is, look, we don't want to be on our own here because actually we're not going to survive on our own. So how do we then go with other brands that actually makes that membership that if I have one-to-one, I can actually then use the others? In my personal world, I mean, I think there's one in the States called Gym and Tonic. And they've got, for me, they've got the studio part right, or the group exercise right. And the reason they've done that is they've got this beautiful, and it's very premium, sort of, bar hybrid area, communal space that's big enough that actually you can have your coffee, your workspace, but you can also at the same time have, a nice drink in the evening if it's a social, it's more a community thing. But what they've built is, think of it as like 4 boxes to a certain degree. You've got 3 boxes, plus you've got your recovery health area. Well, those 3 boxes can change depending on what is in and what's out. So at the moment, they've got cycle, Pilates, and let's say HIIT. Let's say cycle decided it didn't go down. Okay, well, what's the next thing in? We pull that out, we push that in. So you're still keeping that community. And I think if you're a single modality, it's going to be really hard because people like, the David Lloyds or, the Third Spaces, all of that of the UK is, well, you don't need to go to anywhere else because everything that you've just told me about is there and it's under one price. And they might look at, let's say, a recovery membership, or they might be looking at enhancing a cost onto your membership for a small additional fee. You might get red light or cryotherapy or all of these other services. But otherwise, you can go and get everything under one roof. So that's a really hard to compete against.
Yeah.
So let's jump into your journey from in fitness industry, and then just talk about your journey and then how it led you to David Lloyd. And for our US and global listeners, can you just tell us what makes David Lloyd so special?
David Lloyd is like you say, we've got 134 clubs. We're over Europe. So actually we are in 6 different languages when we have to translate all of our training, which is always interesting. But they are exactly what you've described. They are like a lifetime, and at the end of the day, they have everything under one roof. We are a lifestyle brand. We are not just a gym. We're not just but we heavily, look at family. So for us, it is a family proposition. So as well as we've got the hybrid workers and we've got all the business hubs, we are predominantly family. We are in a sort of a part of, we are looking at scaling. So we've got more places in Europe that are coming up, more places in the UK. And what's quite interesting about the UK is we don't really need any pre-sale offices anymore because everyone knows David Lloyd. So actually they're normally full before you even open. Whereas in Europe, we're still a little bit unknown in certain areas. But where we've got what we sort of call geographical sites, let's say Madrid have got 4, it's really easy when you've got a geographical site to then add another one nearby, and it gets full quite quicker. So that's the way it is. But they are a great company, and obviously they have great perks, and we are very have great values. So from my perspective, from a David Lloyd, they do truly live their mission, their values. We do a lot of community stuff, even though people think that corporate environments or private people don't do a lot of community stuff or good stuff or charitable stuff. So we really do quite a lot in both of those spaces.
Great. And so you're the head of fitness programming for the group. Is that right?
Yes.
Is that the title? So what does that entail?
Okay, so it's probably again changed over the years. When I first came to take you back a little bit, I obviously was at Home's Place, worked my way up, went to become a general manager, then went and ran multiple sites, had a couple of children, and as you do at that time, certainly the flexibility of working in a health club 7 days a week on shifts is not really favourable. So I took 5 years out, did a bit of consultancy. I then went back in, funny enough, into what I'm going to call the public sector in the UK. So it's not privately owned, it's more trusts. And the only reason I went into it is because one of the guys, Stuart Martin, Andy, who you'll know, sure, jokingly said to me, we were trying to find someone to run their national group exercise at the time, and we couldn't find anyone. And so I jokingly said, do you know what, if you give me a car, a laptop, a phone, and I'll do 3 days for you, and thinking, yeah. And he went, yeah, no, all right, okay, fine. I was like, oh, okay. So actually, I went from being a general manager and running multiple sites to already just going, okay, what they need is a GroupX strategy to say, how do we standardise our programmes? How do we get return on investment? How do we grow our GroupX year on year? Why? Because we know if we can get those people doing group exercise, our retention will be far greater and we'll have much bigger lifetime value. So that was then really what sort of went, okay, this is a bit of a curveball. And so that's what I did. So year on year, we had about 7% growth, and I stayed there for 7 years, which was fabulous. But then David Lloyd came knocking, and obviously Rob Beale, not telling me that he was leaving, but he said, I think you'd be really good at David Lloyd. And I was really quite happy at Everyone Active, to be honest. They're a great company. But they were at the same time where their group exercise was very traditional. It was probably, if you looked at it, you'd have looked at their timetable saying, if you continue doing what you're doing, we will be dinosaurs. So actually what we need to do is look at what are we offering, who we're offering it to, and actually what are the new demographics that we want to come in? How do we get new members to come in when our programming is so old? So really the first job was really about standardising and then growing what we believed was our own products. And we probably didn't really start that until, and you talk about the boutiques, back in 2017, we had all of those boutiques coming into London, and we're going, okay, well, we need to do something about this. So we'll produce our own. And at the time, Barry's Bootcamp, I liked, Rebels, I liked, Co-Box, I liked. It's like, how do we differentiate? Because we don't want our members thinking they have to go and purchase a single, class somewhere else because they're not getting it where we are. And that was really the start of our bespoke signature offering. So it was from there that we started to develop, why did we do Blaze? Now, Blaze is obviously in 103 clubs, and it is a mixture of, your Barry's, your boxing. And one of the reasons was, A, we needed to get a younger audience in, but secondly, we wanted to get more men into the studios. So therefore, did it do that? Yes, it brought our average age down. Did it get men in? Absolutely, 100%. And it wasn't until COVID hit that we then decided we weren't going to bring the majority of our Les Mills products back in, that this was the time that we had to recreate and almost rip up the paper and say, do you know what, we can start again here. And more importantly, our members will allow us to start again because, as you know, members are very vocal and they don't like change, and instructors don't like change. Yeah. But everyone at that moment in time was, look, we need to get the industry back on their feet. We need to get this moving. We're all in this together. So it's a really nice time to start producing stuff together. And obviously, looking at that sort of 8 years later, or 5 years from COVID, what started off with 6 brands is now we've almost got 16 siblings to that brand. So actually, the brands have just grown, but they've grown due to gaps in the market, member insights. So we've really ensured that those bespoke offerings are member-led, insight-driven, data-driven, all of that feedback. So that's allowed us to then just keep continuing to grow group exercise more and more. And obviously, as we know, with everyone being on their phones, the lack of, let's say, social connections, where we've done Blaze Community Games, which is sort of, a little bit hierarchy. We started that about 4 years ago. We do that international games. We fly members from one country to another if they receive the finals, and they get a nice little package of a hotel. So we started that community quite a long time ago. And I think that's what is now sort of, if you look at the day and age now, everyone's talking about social connections. Everyone's talking about community. And we probably, once we established, let's say, our 6 brands, which were around strength, Blaze is your typical hit. Battlebox is strength and conditioning, but we've got the beauty that we've got the outdoors. You've got our cycle products, which think performance and sort of, rhythm cycling. And then we've got sort of sound meditation, yoga sort of combined. And then we've got our Ignite, that's probably the only classical one, which we stayed as a little bit more choreography from the Les Mills days. But because of those, we've almost touched every sort of point that you can. And once we've made those, let's say, I'm going to say cool enough, we then decided that we were going to do our Rebels brand. And our Rebels was 8 to 13s with their families that can actually do the same Blaze workout, obviously adapted for kids, but in a cool studio, still getting that cardio, the strength, the social connections of I'm working out with my parent, which I might not normally
That's a cool
see
idea.
my parent.
That's a cool idea.
That's a cool idea.
During the week. And also I'm making the social connections with other kids in there. So we've done that with Blaze, we've done it with Battlebox, we've combined our Spirit and Ignite. So you've got, again, the cardio, you've got the balance and the mindfulness and sound meditation. And then even our cycle product, our Rebels Rhythm, you get your cycle, they come off the bike a couple of times, they've got their little hand weights, they've got the mood track, which you always get with the lights off. So what we've done, and when you're looking at progressing, is we've said, well, actually, if you're a parent and you don't have a choice of, you might really like Blaze, but actually it's not on. Well, actually, you can get that 360 cardio, strength and mindfulness in all of our products now, whereas before we probably kept them quite separate. But we're trying to get that blend because we want to get more kids in, more parents in. And actually, if you think about the reasons people don't normally go to GroupX or didn't used to, was I don't feel comfortable in a studio space. Everyone's fitter than me. It was all of those barriers where we're sort of going, well, from a young age now, they've already been in a studio. They feel comfortable. They feel the environment is good. They've had some fun. So even if they leave in their teenage years like mine do, they will probably come back knowing what that environment is like. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Michelle, are you doing currently then basically 100% of your programming is your own programming now?
No. We probably, I would probably say about 40 to 50% is our own programming.
But you're still using third parties like Zumba and Les Mills and people like
that? We use Les Mills for Body Pump. All the rest really is more around allowing the instructors to bring their individual. Yeah. So, it will be under a title. Let's say, I don't know, it's total body workout or whatever. What they choose to put in there is up to them. Because we still want to give the creativity at the same time. And if they don't want to, then obviously they can come and, do our programs. But we will pay the instructors more to run our products than we will their own.
Yeah. So we talk about GroupX a lot, and it's been around for a long time. The term's been around for a long time. But what do you think it means in 2025?
Well, I suppose for me, I think, like we've already said, I think the experience has completely changed. I think group exercise has, the same way as we've said ours has grown arms and legs, I would say GroupX has grown arms and legs. And what I mean by that is, we used to have the Spartans of the world. We used to have, which we probably still do, to be honest. You've got High Rocks coming out. Well, that's still, to a certain degree, an individual sport, but it's within a group of community, like-minded people. Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah. So actually, we do our Blaze Community Games, and we've been running that for 4 years, and that's teams of 3. So again, you're building that community. So I think what I would be saying is group exercise is bringing teams together to work out more together as a group and to have experiences. So you'll probably, again, know that, the wellness tourism is on fire at the moment. Why? Because people want to go and have these experiences, these mindfulness experiences, or it might be hiking. They almost sit under that whole umbrella of group, social, community. I'm trying to either get more active, but I want to do it with a group of people and like-minded people. I want to go for a mindful retreat, so therefore I go with other people. So it's still around these community led elements. And when you're talking about some of the I went to a contrast therapy last week in London, and they've opened up, as you say, a standalone. But it was really interesting being, the whole community piece was there was probably 30 people in this sauna, literally. And I'm like, wow, okay. And they are having this sort of mindfulness, meditation, breathing for 20 minutes before they decide to go and, have their cold baths. Okay. So that they are trying to bring into that element is that community experience. So that's where I'd be saying, look, it is still has the basics of scientific backed exercise, cardio, strength, etc., etc. But everyone is moving towards what experience am I getting? How are you making me feel when I'm going to that group class, rather than how am I thinking I want to look? Does that make sense? Because I think it was very aesthetically, that's what we used to do. If you think about it, used to be, beach body workout, bikinis, whatever it is, summer body workout. You wouldn't dream of putting that. Well, I'd hope someone wouldn't dream of putting on that to a certain degree now, because that's not what people is. How am I going to sleep better? What product is going to make me feel less anxious? How am I going to increase my stress resilience? How am I going to get stronger for life, for my grandkids? So I think we've just completely changed the way that group exercise is filling that purpose for the majority of people.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Michelle. You talked about that. I can't think of anything worse than getting in a sauna with 29 other sweaty
I'll be brutally
people,
honest. I literally was thinking, this is not my cup of tea. I mean, don't get me wrong. This girl was brilliant at her, her breath work. So it was really good. But I was sitting there, and you are sitting on a towel, but it's just dripping everywhere. And I'm like going, this is just not really my cup of tea. And then I'm sure not everyone showered properly before they dipped in the bath either. So
it's interesting, because I remember back in the day. Do you remember I forget who started it, the Step Company or Reebok Step or whatever it was called, and tons of people turn up and do Step, and they do Step classes.
Yeah.
A lot of people wouldn't, because they were frightened of the technicality around it. Correct. They were frightened of kind of doing that. And I wonder if some of these modalities are going to do the same thing in 2025.
Well, it's interesting. She mentioned the Gym and Tonic brand earlier, and really what they're selling is a feeling and an experience, which 100%. Is why they can change those boxes out, right?
100%.
This is what you said too. Yeah. And so I think that's a great mind shift of, you're not selling cycling, you're not selling, running, whatever treadmill, whatever it is. It's, you're selling,
how do you want to feel?
How do you want to
meet?
Yeah.
Who's your tribe? I think that's where, and I think that's probably, I'm going to say we're, and obviously not you, Lauren, it's just, Andy, we are the older category of people that actually we're probably more likely to go, oh, actually, okay, I'm a little bit more particular around what that looks like. But if you think about the Gen Zs and the people that are coming through now, they love these type of experiences. To them, that's just normal. They really do embrace that, and they will go, these Friday evenings, they'll have a workout. I mean, we do blaze bubbles and beers on a Friday, because our members like to have a glass of Prosecco or a beer after or something like that. But it's all around these community events. Yeah. So I think, what we've tried to do quite cleverly as well is, if you think about blaze, you've got a treadmill, you've got a bench, and you've got a bag in there. Well, you don't have to be choreographed. You don't have to, go to the beat. So again, I think what you've probably seen is the more off the beat, the easier it is for people to actually experience, because again, that's what puts people off. The barriers are, am I going to be fit enough? I don't do choreography. I can't dance. And I think actually it's nice that we are seeing group exercise in a much broader term rather than just, individual classes.
It's the tennis versus pickleball argument.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So
tennis versus pickleball kind of argument, because I know it's taken off in the UK too. It's massive here now, and what actually is starting to do now, all the health and wellness studies are coming out about the benefits of pickleball, and it's coming out even better than things like walking and stuff. And I think that's what you're saying. It's not just the actual activity. It is the jumping and the different types of movements that they're doing as you get older. But I think it's also the social aspect of it.
Yeah. People are craving connection. So do you think that's what's kept David Lloyd at the forefront all of these years? Is it just the understanding of that, or how have you been able to stay number one?
I think we continue to innovate, which is great. We have obviously David Lloyd are a private company, so therefore, we do get investment, and we continue to innovate. But what I would say is we innovate. We don't chase trends. We look at the trends, but actually we also look at our member insight. What are our members telling us? What do we? Because also sometimes people don't know what they don't know, so you have to get that balance of what do our members want? And then sometimes they don't know what they might like. It's a bit like before the iPhone. No one knew they wanted an iPhone before they got one. Now they can't live without one. So it's about having that balance, and trying to give them those experiences. But, it's the same as, we've got courts. Well, of course, paddles, massive. Well, lucky us, we are probably the largest provider of paddle in the UK. Why? Because we've got enough space and enough courts to be able to do that.
Oh, yeah.
We can convert if we've got unused places into pickleball, we can convert, offices or studios into reformer. We just have the breadth and the depth and the space to be able to keep, not I'm going to say reinventing, but reinvigorating and bringing innovation. And actually, our members expect it as well. They are paying a premium, so therefore they expect us to have the latest in whatever the consumer is reading at that time. So, one of probably the biggest changes also was our spa retreats. Steph, who heads up our spas, amazing creativity, have put spa retreats in. Well, if you build, they will come. That is it. And the fact that they don't have to go and pay for an experience elsewhere, but have got these, and they are beautiful. Different ice rooms and, different saunas, the whole cold plunge, it is lovely. You actually feel like you are in a resort. The gardens are beautiful. So from that perspective, because we've kept delivering, our members just keep going, well, we want to join, because there is nothing else like that in the UK. There is no other chain right now that delivers family really well and does what we do as well as we do. So I suppose we have got the market.
Sure.
Yeah. So Michelle, let's start talking a little bit about your role. So we'll have lots of other professionals who are listening here. We'll have lots of other people who are coordinating GroupX for small, medium, large chains, etc. So you're responsible for one of the largest, most diverse group fitness programs in Europe. So how do you approach strategy at that scale?
I suppose I've been quite lucky. And when I say quite lucky, is because my background has been in operations. You've also got to have, you've got to have vision and where you want to go, but you've got to also be able to have the operational know-how to be able to almost build that vision and that operation and marry them together. So I think that's actually quite, everything that I do or think about, I always go, how are we going to implement that? Who does that, what does that mean to the teams on the ground? And actually that makes a difference, rather than you do get some people that just go, we'll just run it. Let's just put it out. It's like, well, no, you can't, because it won't sustain. So from us, I think the operational background, I think, you have to be able to articulate the story really well. So what are we doing? Why are we doing it? Who is our audience? How many times? What are the KPIs? What are the expectations? How are we going to market it? All of that needs to be thought about, pre-planned. And it's really about cross-functional collaboration as well, because it's not just us. It involves everybody. We've had a couple of rollouts this year of maybe we changed from sound meditation to spirit bath meditation, which is all that is, by the way, is you get some extra little instruments. But the whole purpose is we have to teach, thousands of instructors how you're going to work with those instruments and what the difference is. We also have to make sure that's translated into every language And we need to, for scalability, you need to ensure that it's a real hybrid. So a lot of it is going to be online. Does that make sense? So for us, it's, what's the story? What's the why? What's going to be the return on investment? Because am I going to get more unique usage, or am I just servicing the same members? You've got to be really ensuring that you are looking at, of course we want to keep servicing our engaged members, but we want more unique users to come into those programs. So how are you reaching those? And then that operational plan is the how, the who's going to help us, how we're going to communicate that, and how we're going to, then measure it once it's in club. So I think we've just probably got it down to quite a knack at the moment, because we tend to, and I do feel a little bit bad, sometimes our Europeans maybe get theirs maybe 3 or 4 weeks later, because purely we have to do all of those translations and make sure that it's good for them, because also we have to look at cultural differences, because Spain runs different to Germany, different to the Netherlands. So actually we also look at, are there any cultural differences that are going to not allow us to run that product? And so far, no.
Yeah. It's interesting, because what I remember from the GroupX days, you always get some very vocal instructors or some very vocal members who almost dictate the programming that you get. So what's the process when you decide whether to create a new program, partner with an external provider, double down an existing format, or the worst, cut a program?
So I think you've got to look at what your expertise is, if I'm being brutally honest. So the first thing is, when we've looked at it is, okay, what are we running and where are the gaps? Because actually what I'm looking at is, how do I grow penetration and unique usage? Because like I say, I don't want to keep servicing the same people. So what are we running? What's really running well, and where are the gaps? Do we have that expertise internally to be able to produce that product? And we work with lots of, our music is bespoke. It's PPL and PRS free, by the way. And when we say that in the UK is quite a cost for us. Now, I say it's PPL and PRS free, and people go, oh, that mustn't be very good. And it's like, no. What you don't understand is, we go into a studio, we go in with artists, we go within the vocals, and we actually produce the music. It's absolutely bespoke for that product. So from a supplier perspective, there are suppliers that we will work with. If it's normally anything to do with, let's say, the general fitness, then we've got PTs, we've got master trainers. We don't need to think about that. We've got choreography, so that's all fine. But let's give you an example of, we are looking heavily into female health at the moment. So we are going to be running some female workshops or webinars for our members. We're going to look at a learning platform for our employees, who are just our employees, are not fitness professionals, but also for our fitness professionals, and how they might be able to apply that knowledge. Now, for that, as much as we could probably do ourselves, we also we're actually going to co-write it, should we say, because the credibility of having those specialists and those people that can actually say, from a medical perspective or from a chief scientific officer perspective, all that does is give us a real integrity for our brand and for our consumers and our members to say, do you know what? They're not just making this up. They're actually working really heavily with other people. So when we produced we've got Battlebox and Buggies and our Spirit pre and post, they're our own products anyway. We wrote that, but obviously we have, fully anti and postnatal qualified instructors or master trainers and product heads writing that. But at the same time, we ensured that we had a chief scientific officer of the active pregnancy looking at it to then validate that's absolutely brilliant. So from ours, then we're happy to then pilot it and put it into the world. So you could look at it on lots of different things. We haven't probably quite got the GLP-1 out there at the moment, which I know is in the US probably more out there than it is in the UK. But, we're going to have to train our teams. They're going to have to be able to talk about it. And they're going to have to know, actually, I don't need to really do anything about it, apart from, if I have a menopausal lady who's also on GLP-1, she doesn't need to be. What are the conversations that I'm going to have? Do I need to do that? Or let's say, and we were talking about bras obviously earlier, Lauren, if there are, lots of females that are running on a treadmill and doing lots of HIIT training, and actually they do need to look at, breast health, then we will have people that they're not just going to go, you know, by the way, you're wearing the wrong bra, but we have that audience that by the time you build those relationships and you're having those seminars, you can signpost them to, you know, people with more expertise than us. So I think that's where I'm saying is know where your lane is and know how good you are in one respect, but ensure that when you're looking at other things that could be a little bit more scientific, more difficult, then you have to work with people that actually know more than us. 100%. And if we're not, then the credibility is just not going to be there.
Yeah. How long does it take for a program to come out? Because that sounds like a lot of work and a lot of people to train.
We probably look, it depends what product. So in Blaze, our workouts, they're a different workout every day. So that's the whole point, is you get a different workout every day. So they are just continuing to be run, and they are fed onto a tablet that, you know, instructors go on and they can see the workout of the day. So that's really easy. In something like Spirit or Ignite, which are much more choreographed and add the music and we layer that all out, they're probably working 6 months in advance. So they have to produce that. And that's also quite difficult, because when you're, you know, we already know what we're doing in 2026 right now. And actually we want a lot of alignment. So we just embed that into some of our training. And because we want, let's say, our employees, our instructors, our personal trainers, all to be almost singing from the same hymn sheet. So if we can build that education into e-learning, into live webinars, into some of the live workshops that we do, it just makes us stronger as a brand to be able to be delivering what we're saying we're delivering.
Yeah. You mentioned you don't follow trends, but you of course have to know about them and probably stay ahead of them. So how do you balance innovation with your operations and just all of that?
I think when I say we don't follow, we do to a certain degree, but actually we don't. Is that right for us? Does that make sense? Is that right for our members? Because if you think about, you know, I suppose the trends at the moment are going to be, it's always going to be AI and wearables and how you integrate and that's your HRV, your Aura rings, you know, that is something at the moment that everyone's going to be looking at. So that's not necessarily a trend. That's just consumers are now beginning to perhaps know more than us. So actually we need to get, I'm talking generalized, by the way, not just, you know, so therefore we need to educate our teams well enough so that when someone comes in with a, you know, an Aura ring and you go, oh, by the way, I see you're already invested in your health. Talk to me about your HRV. You know, if our sales teams don't know about it, then that's going to be a little bit of a problem. If our instructors don't know anything about it, that's going to be a problem. So I think there are certain things that force us to do things, and there's other things that don't. So if I'm saying that will be something that everyone is going to have to do, because otherwise our consumers are going to be coming in looking for support and they don't really know about that. That will probably be also via the app, via, you know, digital, as well as being able to have that conversation. We've got other things where we are doing a blend of, let's say, wellness experiences, or we do a body and sound event. Now, people won't know what a body and sound event is, and they won't actually be able to tell you what a body and sound event is until they get there, because what we're doing is a whole blend of, do you remember those silent disco headphones?
Yeah.
So we've got literally, you know, cathartic breath. We've got movement in there. We've got live sound meditation in there. We've got dance meditation. It's like this 90-minute journey where you don't stay in it long enough to dislike it, but you don't stay in it long enough to go, oh my, you're moving on. When you do something like that and you say to someone at the end, so describe what you just went through, they just go, I can't, that was just amazing. So, you know, we're trying to create experiences like that. And we're testing, you know, where we've got big, you know, geographical 150 people coming from 4 different clubs, making it a really big thing, because that's going to the health and fitness events. You know, if you look at, I think Eventbrite was saying something like they had 146% increase in bookings in 2024 for health and fitness events. So, you know, it's coming. So it's almost, well, where do we sit on that? You know, do we want to do our own because we've got big enough spaces? You know, people are always going to be going on their holidays, or they'll go to different experiences. But actually, we also want to build our community. So I think, again, you just get that balance. You know, the pre and post stuff was, we're a family market. We should be running pre and post. But actually, when we looked at some of the data, our clubs weren't running pre and post. And it's like, oh my gosh, you know, how are we not running pre and post when we want to start from, you know, conception, all the way through. So that's where we were saying there's a gap. Let's make sure we fill it. Let's make sure it's really credible, and let's make sure it's around our product. So I think that's where I'm saying is you have to look at what fundamentally the foundations you've got that are really strong already to decide whether you can move into a trend or not.
Yeah. And of course, all of this is only as good as your people. So instructor quality. So
100%.
Two things. So what do you look for in recruiting, and how is your instructor training evolved in your eyes now that you've got digital and hybrid models coming into play?
So we leave our recruitment to our clubs. So we have to trust that our group exercise supervisors within those clubs know what great looks like. So from that perspective, when we're looking at our own products, we have what great looks like videos anyway. So this is what a great audition would look like. So they will normally go through an audition process. And once they get on an audition process, they then get booked onto training. Now, our training is a blend of online. So that will be foundational knowledge. And then really it will then be coming onto a live training. And that's where we go, okay, you've had the knowledge. Let's now have a look at your skills and behaviours. And then they will go away, and either some we pass on those weekends, depending on what products they are, and others they will do a 4-week submission video and they will send that into us. So that's almost your foundation training for all of them. Once they become certified as a signature instructor in whatever they are, our education, I have to say this, I think our education is probably one of the best. She says confidently sitting there. And the reason, and especially moving into 2026, because we are trying to align to make sure that everyone is really knowledgeable about this stuff that we are talking to our members about. Yeah. So GLP-1, female health, pelvic health, breast health, all of that, for us, if we can get to a place where all of our instructors, if they're signature instructors, whether they're personal trainers or whether they're employees, have an awareness about that, have education on that, and are signposted to the right way, that only helps our members to be more supported. So we just make sure that there is one live event they can come to, but they don't have to. And there's one webinar and one e-learning. So we say, look, to stay certified, you need to take 2 out of the 3. So again, they don't ever have to come to a live. You can do a webinar and you can do an online, but you're still getting the fundamental new knowledge that we're asking you to bring into your programming. So I think that's really important, because I think obviously COVID has taught us you have to go online, you have to make it really easy and accessible for people. And some people, you have to make it weekends, you have to make it evenings, because people sometimes have a job during the day and this is their part-time work, or they'll have their kids during the day, for us it's about us being as flexible as possible to enable them to be able to be successful. And we've also, through all of our training, especially our signature training, is we've almost mapped and weaved our values into that as well, so that they actually feel they belong to something more than you're just giving us a service.
Yeah. What advice would you have for fitness professionals looking to stand out in the training process? I mean, you have to have certain maybe traits or qualities that you look for that you're like, yep, right, they're going to be great.
Yeah, I think it's funny. You're absolutely right. I mean, we can train the skills. What you can't train is the mindset. And I think that's definitely from a growth mindset. I think, people, I would be saying, you need to be a bit bolder, you need to be a bit braver. It will depend on what you're, trying to audition for, because, a blaze instructor might be very different to a spirit instructor. So I think it's, know the product that you really want, you want to teach. You can always cross market afterwards, like we always do, if that makes sense. Personality is key. Being able to speak to members is key. Asking lots of questions. It's that almost that thirst, which most people do have, that education. I want to learn more. I want to learn more. But I think it's about being bolder and being braver. And actually, if I was an instructor nowadays, I would always be interested in how many people came to my classes. Was that good or not? Because I think we forget that at the end of the day, you're being paid for a service, and I would want to know, how am I doing? So I think it's really important from a business perspective that, they get feedback. They know whether they're getting a 5-star review. They know whether members are telling us, how great they are. But I think, Andy, you spoke previously, you also get those instructors and members that are very vocal, and it is very difficult because they have been teaching for 30 years and they don't want to teach anything else.
Yeah.
And that is, for me, and I suppose, having been a general manager, having spoken to lots of instructors in the past, for me, it's normally a conversation or a misunderstanding because, or actually, it's the fear that I might not be good enough. When we've done auditions for our new products, sometimes people don't audition because they have never had to audition for a product before. And so they're actually scared of failure. So for me, again, it's trying to work with to say, we will support you, we will make sure that you get great training, but you need to show us that spark, that bit of, wow, that member's going to really come for. Because at the end of the day, it's a bit like being in theatre, isn't it? You are.
We said the word audition many times, right? So I think that's key. Yeah.
But we used to. What's quite interesting is many, many years ago, auditions, you just had to audition, and then it stopped that you had to audition at all. So when people are asked again to audition now, they feel like, well, what do you mean? Do you not see my skill set? It's not about that skill set right now. It's about, let's see you in a different light. You're looking at a different product. We will help you and we'll support you, but we need you to, show us that you do have those skill sets. And I think for me, I'd be always professionalism.
Yeah,
is one of them. Because if you're providing a service, whether it's for us, whether it's for any other party, you have to stay on that line. You can't cross the line to be becoming so friendly with the members that you're, I call biting the hand that feeds. But at the same time, you want to be working. So it's just communication. It's about communication. I think we also need to ensure that they feel valued and there's that real clear communication about what the expectation is. Because I also don't think sometimes we are good at telling them what their expectations are in club, which is why they go slightly off key.
So, Michelle, we've introduced a new thing into the podcast, which is a quick fire round. So we want you to answer these questions in 20 seconds or less, okay? Yep. So where do you see the future of group fitness going 5 years from now?
I think it's going to be towards a more integrated wellbeing ecosystem. So it's going to combine, physical activity, mental health, social connections, personalizations. I think tech's going to play a role, but I also think people want more than a workout. They want stories, they want purpose, they want community. And so I think it's going to be all about supporting that ecosystem.
Sure. What's your view on sustainability and social impact within the fitness industry? So should group fitness be doing more? What's David Lloyd doing? What's your thoughts?
Okay, so we are actively pursuing a science-based path to becoming net zero. From a group fitness perspective, so if I look at me, we have Yogi Bear mats that are made into kids' playgrounds when they are recycled. We are looking at all of our Blaze equipment. It's being recycled, replenished, reused. We've sent body pump kit over to communities that are doing rehabilitation for ex-soldiers. But I do think we should be doing a lot more with some of our gym stuff. But actually, when you ask suppliers, because I always say, what's your sustainability and what's the recyclable? They're a little bit stumped. So for me, they need to be doing more for us.
Gosh, we might have something happening on that front.
Okay,
so,
sure. Yeah.
Which is my passion, as you know.
If you could redesign group fitness from scratch, what's one thing you'd change?
I would 100% create programs around purpose and link them to how people feel. So for me, it would be all about, especially now, it would be, how do you want to feel? Okay, I'm going to link this, and it's going to be really holistic to what your goal is. So for me, it's not about changing everything. It's about repurposing how we market it, and so that our members and our consumers are understanding it better.
Michelle, you're doing great. You're nailing this under 20 seconds every time.
Well, a press up is a press up, so you're not going to change it, are you? Does that make sense? It's how do you repurpose it?
Awesome.
What do you change it?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. What's one outdated belief or myth in fitness you're working to break within the industry?
Okay, I think we're nearly there, but to be fair, it's probably from a female perspective. I still think people think that they're doing weights, they shouldn't lift heavy, that they're going to bulk up. And I think from our perspective, we are trying to look at that in some of our webinars. We talk about injury resilience, we talk about fueling. I think that's another thing that people get wrong, fueling. I need to eat less rather than eat more, and eat more protein, etc., etc. So from my perspective, it's still really female orientated around strength and fueling.
So your favourite class to either teach or participate in? You personally?
My favourite used to be cycling because obviously I'm ex-triathlete. But now I must admit I'm a bit of a Blaze Battlebox. I like Battlebox for me. Outdoor, functional training.
Cool.
Love it.
Biggest misconception about group fitness?
That it's only for the super fit or it's for girls.
Yeah. What is one thing you wish you knew earlier in your career?
I think it would probably be to not wait for permission to lead. Because I think sometimes you wait because you're that junior person and you think, I'm going to wait to be told, or I'm going to be, I think actually we should be a little bit bolder, a little bit braver, and actually go, I can lead this, and actually start to show those earlier on. And I don't think we do, maybe just because of confidence, especially I think from a female perspective, being a very male orientated industry, you sort of, pipe down a little bit just in case it's wrong.
Mm.
Well, I'm going to give you 30 seconds of this one. She just led into something I wanted to ask. There's a reason why Laura and I sit next to each other. We're all about equality. We're all about promoting female strength, male strength, or whoever. Yeah. So from your perspective, you just mentioned it yourself, as I've always felt the fitness industry, particularly from a leadership point of view, was very male dominated. Is that changing, or has it still got a long way to go?
To be honest, I think it depends what role you're in. So I think, predominantly GroupX always looks like it's female, PTs look predominantly male. And then if you're looking at leadership roles or operations, you can get a bit of a mix. I think certainly we still need to change. We need to get more female leaders in the boardrooms, into senior leadership. If I go to buyer and supplier events, there's very few females, that they are much more male orientated. So I do think we need to continue to change that. I mean, I certainly know, from a David Lloyd perspective, we have some leadership programs, and we're really trying to promote more females. But I don't think we make it, when I say we, David Lloyd is not part of this, but, one of my favourite roles was a GM. Well, they won't allow you as a general manager to job share. So straight away, you have to find something else to do. So I think the world needs to look at more flexibility, that both parents are working nowadays. And, we need to really drive that a little bit harder.
Drive that.
Yeah.
Okay, so last quick fire question. If you weren't in fitness, what would you be doing?
Oh, do you know what? Right now, I would be right in the middle of the digital AI world, because I'm a little bit of a geek and I'm really enjoying all of that. But originally I wanted to become a physiotherapist, still sort of linked to sport, but that's where I wanted to go. I just didn't want to go back to school.
Yeah. It's a lot of
I have gone back to school though, because I'm just hopefully finishing my MBA next year. So yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well,
Michelle, this has been fascinating. We always like to wrap up with one question that basically epitomizes the core values of our podcast. We're all about strength, kindness, and perspective. So let's just focus on the kindness bit. Is there someone in your life who has deeply influenced you, inspired your journey, somebody you wanted to be kind enough to give a shout out to?
Oh, do you know what? It's quite funny. I found this really hard, this one, actually, because there are so many people. But I suppose right now I'd be going, Elena LaPetra.
Of course, I know Elena very well.
Yes. So from Stronger. In fact, when you said, someone who embodies both strength, kindness, and perspective, she is definitely she is that person. But I suppose where I was always going, influence or inspired your journey, there is so many people, and I think this is one thing I say, we are extremely lucky in this industry that it is one close-knit community that does try and lift people up. The majority of people do try to be kind. So even throughout my home place, the early days, Stu Martins, I've been really lucky to have people that have influenced and inspired my journey to become better. And certainly my team right now inspire me to keep creating products that we have real purpose and meaning to our members. And so for me, that's, what it's about. It's about being purpose driven every time you go into work.